Good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Hope you're having a pleasant evening. I know there's load shedding across the country at the moment, so if you are managing to tune in via your phone or whatever other method you've chosen, we hope you manage to stay with us for the full time. My name is Trenton Birch. I head up Chiba Africa. We run Chiba Cannabis Academy, where we deal with education and training across the whole cannabis spectrum. Today, we are going to unpack the cannabis opportunity for traditional farmers. Traditional farmers is quite a broad definition. We have traditional farmers in the rural areas who are kind of micro farmers. Then we also have sort of more industrial farmers that have been growing other kind of crops on scale for many years. And there are lots of questions about the opportunity to grow cannabis on an industrial hemp level, on a THC or a CBD level. There's legislation can be confusing. Farmers are looking at it and going, is this a real opportunity or is this not an opportunity? So we're going to unpack all of that today. We've got some great guests, but first of all, I'd like to bring on our co-sort of partner for this webinar from SAI. His name is Francois. Francois, if you'd like to join us, please.
Hi, Trenton.
Francois, how are you doing? I see that you don't have it yet. Lucky few.
Sorry, Trenton, you're breaking up. Can you just repeat it?
It doesn't look like you have load shedding, so you're one of the lucky few.
Yes. It actually just stopped here on our side, so we're lucky.
Okay. So just a bit about SAI, your organization, please.
Trenton, SAI, or is short for the Southern Africa Agricultural Initiative. We got started in February of 2019, and we were launched within the United Nations Decade of Family Farming. And this decade was announced by the UN and its affiliate IFAD and some of the other organizations that are related to the UN, because they realized that farmers are the best possible occupation and the best possible group to address the issues that are highlighted within the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 SDGs. And some of these issues are, creating jobs, ensuring that there is nutritious and enough food for everybody to eat, stopping this migration from towns to cities, and then most importantly, stopping the impact of climate change. And so for the next 10 years until 2028, a lot of the UN and its affiliates budgets and the governments associated with it will channel their budgets to assist family farmers. Now, family farming can be a very broad term, but we like to define it as any person that makes a living with their hand in the soils. And that is also what we as SAI represent. We use a 3-pillar approach. We only represent family farmers, so we do not represent anybody else, no corporations or banks or other farming structures. We represent those farmers, protect their rights and interests, and we talk directly to them and they to us. We do not have any provincial or local or regional structures. We are a unitary open economy structure. And with that, we are the second leg of SAI is that we work in a network relationship. I think this webinar is an ideal example of that. We don't duplicate what other organizations or structures are doing well. We partner with them to bring the best possible information and assistance to our members, which is the family farming community as a whole. Then the third leg is technology. I think it's impossible. It's crucial that we embrace it, and we actually try to over-exaggerate the use of technology, especially within SAI, because our farmers or members don't have to use it, but they have to know what is available and what is out there and where we are heading as a community as a whole. So I think that in a nutshell is what we do, who we represent. We have approximately 9,000 active family farming members across South Africa. We operate in all 9 provinces, and we also have members in Zimbabwe and Namibia. We are also quite actively involved in what is happening in those countries, especially relating to the family farming sector.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, it's a fascinating organization. When we first met, I was very inspired by the work that you guys do, in terms of bringing people together. In terms of the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, hemp is obviously a massive point of discussion. What is the perception on the ground of the farmers that you represent in terms of cannabis?
Yes, they are very curious. They are very enthusiastic about the opportunities that it can unlock and the wealth, especially in the rural areas. But it's kind of a minefield for them, and that is why this webinar is so important. To have a webinar that is focused on the family farming sector and how they can get involved, and not the rest of the value chain, because I think there's a lot of opportunity down the value chain, but farmers are still a bit stuck. And I think the biggest obstacle for that is clarification regarding the legislation.
Yeah, well, from a cannabis industry professional, I wish I could give you the exact ins and outs, but that's why we're here today. So we're going to unpack that throughout. Francois, thank you so much, and we're very proud to be working with you on this webinar. And thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Trenton.
Great. We're going to bring the rest of our panelists in to unpack the cannabis opportunity for traditional farmers. It can be quite confusing, as an industry professional. It is very confusing. The legislation is continually changing, so we're going to unpack that now. So I'd like to bring the guests in. Linda, if you could just bring all our guests in. Anthony, how are you doing? I'm going to allow everybody to introduce themselves, but let's just get everybody into the room. Okay, where's everyone else? Is Daniel? Welcome, Daniel. Kian, how you doing? Okay, here we go. It's Theo. Great, guys. I think Nati is trying to join us, but I believe has load shedding, so battling away. So hopefully he'll join us at some point. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to allow you guys to introduce yourself quickly. So Anthony, if we could just start with you, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Triton. Good evening to you, and good evening to my fellow panelists, and good evening to everyone who's attending this webinar tonight. My name is Moloto Anthony. I am the Scientific Manager of Technology Transfer Services within the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. I've also been seconded to the Job and Economic War Room within the province to work on the issues of Gauteng cannabis industrialization in the province. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Really appreciate you being here. And just, for the record, Anthony, someone from government who's been really pioneering, trying to understand the industry, has visited many farms. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being here. It's great to see us engaging with government on a real level to take things forward. I'm going to cross over to your right. Daniel, welcome. How are you doing? Looks like you might be in your car or you've got load shedding. But thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Like to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thank you, Trenton. Yeah, I'm in the camera, brother. There's load shedding this side. So thank you. Greetings to all the panelists. My name is Daniel. I'm the director of Nongos Joint in the Northwest Province. Nongos Joint is highly involved with communities, rural communities in the province, to establish a hub that will actually consolidate all the farmers and assist them in entering the space. We're also engaging highly with government, and we're also happy to see Kenya as well. We're actually working with Kenya Trade Gardens to develop. We have developed actually the provincial model that will assist us going forward in empowering our local farmers.
Great, Daniel. Thanks. It's great to have you on. We know we really appreciate you've been working on the ground for many, many years in this space. So it's really good to have your lens and your viewpoint. Theo, we're honored to have you on. If you could just introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Theo de Jager. I'm a farmer from Limpopo. I farm subtropical fruits and timber. I'm also the chairman of the board of SAI. I'm also the president of the World's Farmers Organization. My office is in Rome. I just returned this afternoon from there. Previously, I was the president of the Pan-African Farmers Organization, who represents 72 farmers organizations in 44 countries in Africa. And before that, I was the president of SACAU, the Southern African Confederation of Agricultural Unions.
Well, you're a high roller, so we really appreciate your time. I know you've been down to visit our campus and doing some incredible things internationally. So it's great to see South Africans out there pioneering things in industries that are so sort of important to the world. So, Theo, thanks for being here. Looking forward to your input. Kian, over to you.
Thanks, Trenton, and good evening to the panelists. It's an honor to be with you tonight. Such amazing people doing really good work. My name's Kian McClelland. I'm the CEO of Druid's Garden. We're a health and wellness company that have been around since 2017, making traditional medicines, cultivating and manufacturing traditional medicines from Africa and Asia. And in 2019, we entered the cannabis space, which we feel has got a massive opportunity for social development in South Africa. And we're very interested to have this discussion this evening to look at how we can empower traditional growers. So very good to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Trenton. It looks like we may have lost Trenton.
Yeah,
Trenton.
it's load shedding. That's the issue.
So Anthony, if I may, while we're waiting for Trenton to come back, I know that Gauteng is really doing a lot of pioneering work in this cannabis space, and you've been very active, as Trenton said. Maybe you could just give us a brief overview of what the objectives of your provincial opportunity are. I see Trenton's back. He might want to change that question. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah,
again.
he's back and gone again.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to pick up from the question that you posed, Sian, is that from the Gauteng provincial government, we've got a plan which we call the Growing Gauteng Together 2030 plan. And in that particular plan, we've got 10 high growth sectors that the province is looking into, in particular, to accelerate their implementation. And in those 10 high growth sectors, cannabis industrialization is part of those 10 high growth sectors, to then be implemented and accelerated so that most particularly the economic opportunities that lie within this particular industry, as others call it, green gold, those opportunities can then be unlocked. And when the opportunities are unlocked, that will then also translate to job creation, which we all want to see ourselves, contributing to. And what we have done so far, I think everybody would appreciate that the cannabis industry is quite a challenging industry, from the legislative point of view, and also the finance point of view, because most of the commercial banks are not really keen in terms of investing in this particular industry. So much so because the legal framework is still evolving within the country, and of course within the globe. So what we are also doing is that we don't want to be left behind, where we are supposed to play a role, where we are supposed to play our part. We are definitely there to play our part. What we have been doing so far, we have been identifying and interacting with those who are within the industry, those who are already registered, for example, with SAPRA. Yourself, Druid's Gardens, are part of those who are registered with SAPRA and are SAPRA licensed in terms of producing or cultivating cannabis for medicinal purposes. We've interacted with some, but we still have a lot to interact with them. Firstly, to understand the work that they do, and secondly, to understand from them what is it that they would want to see government doing from a support point of view, and also from laying the playing field within the province to ensure that those who want to participate in this particular industry, they do so. We have also interacted with the draft national cannabis master plan. We are currently also looking into developing our own provincial cannabis strategy that will then be able to guide us in terms of what interventions we need to put in place to make sure that we support those who are within the province and are participating in this particular space. Of course, where the regulations allows us to do so within the provincial, as the provincial government, because you would understand that the regulatory framework that are currently governing or are responsible for the cannabis within the country are managed and at the national level, but where we are in terms of supporting, especially those who are within, who are already licensed, and those who want to participate in terms of getting licenses, and those who want to participate through the process that has already been opened up at the National Department through the Plant Improvement Act in terms of the application process of the hemp permit. We are assisting those ones. We are also identifying their training needs so that we can then be able to put some programs together that will then be able to help them in terms of training them in partnership with those who are within the training space, because we understand very well that many people have not been participating in this industry because it has been the plant itself has been illegal for quite some time, in many areas, and the issues of training. A lot of people still needs to be trained in this particular crop so that they can be able to understand, most particularly, the components, the compounds that are found within this particular crop, and what other what other opportunities, because there are quite a number of opportunities that are available within the cannabis industry, which through the value chain, which opportunities can they then be able to tap into and be able to unlock those particular economics. And we are also partnering within the research space, because we understand that quite a number of research institutions have not been conducting any research within the crop itself, within the industry itself, although ARC has been embarking on quite a number of research programs, especially on the hemp for fiber purposes. But we want to also research on other areas that will then be able to assist us unlock those value chains within this particular industry. And we are partnering with the universities, the research councils, and also the science council within the province, so that we can then be able to start researching on certain areas and capacitate ourselves so that we understand better how we then be able to tap into those more than 2,500 opportunities lying in these particular opportunities, and from government point of view, be able to unlock this multi-billion rand economy that can also be able to translate into job creation. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. We really appreciate that download. It's really important to get the government's stand at the moment. And we, as an industry, we appreciate everything the government is doing moving forward. Just rewinding a bit, Kian, can you just give us a quick overview of the current licensing structure? Like if for people who are traditional farmers at the moment and they want to step into, what are the available licensing structures at the moment?
Okay, Trendon, so you've touched on a very difficult point there. Licensing is either two routes, as Anthony just mentioned. Either you go with a SAPRA license or you go with a hemp permit. The SAPRA license, unfortunately, due to the compliance regulations, is generally way out of reach of what we class as traditional or home growing, family growers, as Theo mentioned just now. So we are supporting 6 community projects around the country, in Northwest and in KZN. And what we've done as a way of addressing the training is to assist those communities to apply for hemp permits. 3 of those communities are actually in partnership with the traditional leadership of those communities and the municipality. So we've brought together kind of a consortium of traditional leaders, municipalities, and Druids Garden and investors, so that we are able to firstly utilize hemp as a mechanism to train people. Because ultimately, if you're growing hemp for medicinal purposes, or your hemp is further spaced apart and not directly for industrial, your growing methodologies are very, very similar. So we understand that the SAPRA licensing is way out of reach. And so in order to be able to move this train forwards, while licensing conditions are changing, we are utilizing hemp as a method to train people, get them to understand the plant, the soil, how things work, how the industry works. And then as they are developing, they could then either choose to take advantage of the new legislations that should be coming out, or continue with hemp, or if they have access to the funding, to move into a SAPRA licensing. But unfortunately, that is currently way out of reach of traditional growers. So for us, when the title of this conversation tonight is about traditional growers, and for us, our thrust with that is involving traditional leadership and traditional rural communities to assist to develop those communities and to assist them to ultimately own the full value chain, cultivation, processing, and manufacture of end products. So in a nutshell, that's my view there.
Yeah, great. Just quickly, so I'm aware that there will be people on this webinar who actually know nothing about growing cannabis. So we've got this little clip which I want to talk you through. So essentially, these are your options: tunnels, indoors, and outdoor. This is very high level. This is some example of some tunnels or greenhouses. We've then got this is kind of some outdoor examples. The next slide kind of covers, this is indoor, much more regulated, much more sort of slick and automated. Some people go in containers. And there's also, when you're indoor, there's automation. For most farmers will understand automation and drip irrigation and all of those kind of things. So these are it's quite complex, And the other thing I also wanted to highlight is that there's this is an indoor facility which people use to grow like high level stuff. And then just another image. So there's a big difference between growing high THC cannabis and hemp. And so these images kind of show this is an outdoor sort of cannabis field, and then this is hemp. So you look at the small guy on the left there. Hemp grows much bigger, much more industrial. So just to give you a little sort of taste of how that works, Theo, you have a local and an international lens on the industry at the moment. Obviously, being based in Europe, you're getting exposure to a lot of cannabis because there's a lot of talk about it. Is there a perception, or what is the perception of the South African cannabis market from an international lens? Could you share some maybe insight on that?
Trenton, it is seen as a niche farming operation, really still in a very new space. And there's a lot of curiosity, a lot of interest in it. Of course, there are some of the cannabis producers in Europe which view South Africa and Southern Africa as potential competition. But I firmly believe that there are some opportunities to lure investors too. And there are a number of things which we can actually learn from how the industry got onto its feet, not only in Europe, but also elsewhere, especially also in New Zealand, which grows it in the same season as us. And I think there are 5 things which we should kick off. First of all, this industry will only survive if it is profitable and sustainable. But sustainability and profitability is pretty much the same thing. And for that, you need to be well organized. You need structures which can pin down the rules of the game. If you don't do it from the industry side, it will be done for you by government on whichever level. It is important to be well organized for advocacy, to influence policies around this industry, of which we do not have much yet. Of course, to influence policies, you need to have policies. And the discussion in the industry needs to be taken to a next level. And then also, one need a structure to protect and promote the interests of your producers. For this industry to grow to the level which it is expected elsewhere in the world, we need a lot more R&D. And both research and development cost a lot of money. That's where we need some investment right now. And it can be done in study groups, in training seminars, knowledge transfer, exchange between producers. It does not need to be too formal or even too expensive. And then we need a special financial mechanism to get this industry off the ground. And we have examples of that, both in our own history in South African agriculture and elsewhere in the world. And the special financial instrument is more or less soft, patient, and sympathetic capital. Capital at lower rates than what is available at the moment in the market over longer periods than what is readily available in the markets. And here, we can also think of levies, like a number of other industries has done, which has since grown into massive structures, such as the macadamia industry, which have a voluntary levy. And then, of course, we need to think about the first steps in processing and how to organize that, how the producers can have a stake in it. It enhances one's profitability and also the sustainability. In the form of a cooperative, we actually have wonderful legislation in South Africa that governs cooperatives, and if ever the time was ripe for a cooperative in this space, it is now. And then lastly, it is important to have such a structure to manage the data in the industry, the collection and the harvesting of the data, the sifting, the processing, the packaging, the trading of the data, and most important, it is important for the producers to retain ownership of the data, or at least to retain a stake in the data. So in this very unique juncture of time, the big question is, can we keep the industry free from political interference? Can we open up the blue skies above it? And can we structure it to be sustainable and profitable? And for that, we need communications. I think the most important person which can be appointed at this stage for a young industry is the communications officer, who can speak both internally to the producers and also position ourselves externally to the consumers and the markets. Thank you.
Completely. That's very, very well put, Theo. Thank you for that input. We just ran a poll. What confuses you the most about cannabis farming? So 10% said how to actually grow cannabis, 36% said how to get a license, the legal framework, 31%, 14% said everything, which is why you're here. So thanks for joining us. And 8% say I'm not confused. So there's definitely some people out there who do know what they're doing. Anthony, there's a lot of emphasis on agriculture at the moment. Everyone's talking about growing cannabis. You know, we already have 900,000 odd illegal farmers in the country. Those are the stats. What is the government view on industrialization? Because we can grow hemp and we can grow cannabis, but if we don't have the processing, we don't have the sort of decortication plants for hemp, and we can't actually take that product and manufacture it into end product, we're never going to get off the ground. So have governments started to look in detail at that part of the industry, industrialization, because that takes huge capital, and that's something that needs assistance from wide parts of the business community, government sort of sectors. What is the government sort of take on that at the moment?
Definitely. What has been identified is that basically the industrial part of the cannabis sector is the one that has got potential to create more jobs, and is the one that has got more potential to also be able to contribute and unlock the cannabis economy. Already within government, within Gauteng, there are already discussions in terms of what strategies can be put in place, and there are already draft strategies to look into the industrialization of cannabis within the province. And as I've indicated, we spent quite a number of time for the past 7 months going around the province, interacting with industry role players, those who are within the space, who are already planting, and those who are already who want to tap into the processing and also extraction part of things. And they have outlined to us the challenges that they are faced with. And of course, the biggest challenge will always, or at least for now, is regulatory framework. And all of us, we are saying, as Dr. Dijager has indicated, one of the shortcoming or the gap within this industry is that small, young as it could be, it is still not yet structured. And the advocacy from the industry point of view is not really there. But already government has made a lot of pronouncement from a regulatory point of view. I think that also indicated as last year, around about November, the hemp permit process was also opened for those who want to participate to then be able to apply for the hemp, and they can then be able to plant the hemp. So from the provincial point of view, what we are already anticipating is that those who are already applying, as soon as they get the permit to cultivate, and as soon as they start cultivating, they will still come and look at government to say, where is the market? Where is the industry where we need to supply with the biomass? And we have already communicated with those who, few as they are, who are already participating in the space. And there are those who are already importing the raw materials, for example, to come and process the hempcretes. There are those who are already importing material to be able to process, into fiber and other products from there. And we are looking into how best can we support the industry, how best can we partner with the industry for the industry to establish within the province, so that ultimately we can then be able to establish a cannabis hub, establish Gauteng as a cannabis mecca, wherein bigger provinces, of course, in terms of land, who are cultivating masses of vast of land in terms of hemp, they can look into Gauteng in terms of supplying with the raw material, with the biomass, so that it can then be processed here. Strategies are already in place. We are interacting with the industry, and our intention is that we should support the industry, we should partner with the industry to then start to be opening up industries within the province, of course, within the current legislative framework, which is, of course, evolving from day to day. And ultimately, I believe at some point, all of us, the legislative framework will be at a point where all of us, we will be satisfied with, and we can fully participate into this particular industry. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Anthony. It's fascinating to actually, when we first started our journey in cannabis, it was, we really, just to be brutally honest, we really struggled to get anybody from government to come onto these webinars. And it's really refreshing to hear you articulate your deeper understanding of the industry. And so it feels like we've all come a long way. So we appreciate your input. We're actually, we've got a course we're giving away. I'm just going to read out the winner. The winner of this course is Tabiso Mabaso from Potchefstroom. You have won an online course. We'll be in touch, and you can choose from either of the two courses that came up on the screen. So we will get in touch with you as soon as this is done. I want to just take this back to sort of more the grassroots sort of growing part of this, because, as we saw in the poll earlier, there are a number of people who don't know how to grow cannabis or don't even know where to start. Kian, can you just unpack some of the differences between growing industrial hemp, CBD, medicinal hemp, and high THC cannabis, just for people who don't know what those kind of different areas are?
Okay, thanks, Trenton. So the low-hanging fruits really in terms of the hemp permits is industrial hemp. And I think from the pictures you showed earlier, really that's just a particular cultivar that is very low in THC, and in CBD, as a matter of fact, they're planted very close together. And because the plant is looking for light, it grows tall and thin. And in order to keep itself sturdy, it produces fibers that lend themselves to being used for industrial purposes. And that's really one particular type of cultivation. The cultivation of hemp for CBD and the cultivation of cannabis for THC, or a variety of cannabinoids, is very, very similar. And we had our research and development permit for 2 years before we got our license. And so we experimented with many different cultivars, local and international cultivars, under very different growing conditions, very different climatic conditions, simulated climatic conditions, in net houses, in the ground, in pots. And we found that cultivating hemp for CBD with the correct cultivars, and obviously within the framework of the law in terms of THC content, is extremely similar to cultivating THC for cannabis, cannabis for THC. So we know that the laws are evolving, they are relaxing, and it is really only a matter of time. How long, we don't know. That the cultivation of THC for medicinal and for responsible adult use will be made available. So we're utilizing hemp for CBD as a method, as a way of training people in those different processes. You grow them very much the same. Because it's medicine, you have to follow certain, or it to be used for medicine, complementary or otherwise, or pharmaceutical, it needs to be grown to very, very strict conditions. You need to obviously have a certain type of growing substrate or growing medium that has been tested for heavy metals, your water, your soil, so your water, your nutrients. It's, as we know, cannabis is a bioaccumulator, and any heavy metals or anything dirty that's in your soil or water or your nutrients will accumulate in the plant and concentrate. Now, when you're using industrial hemp, that's why you can plant it on mine dumps to remove toxins. That's a different story. But if you are cultivating hemp for CBD or cannabis for THC, one has to be very, very aware of very strict protocols around pathogens, molds, heavy metals, and all sorts of nasties that can accumulate. And so whilst we are very much against, or very much pro deregulating certain aspects of the industry, we also believe that other aspects of the industry need to be very well enforced. We cannot have toxic CBD going into medicine or toxic flower for recreational use, whether it be CBD, which is a very big industry for people stopping smoking tobacco and various other reasons. Flower for CBD or any cannabinoid and THC needs to have very strict regulations around quality control. And for us, that's a biggie. So we use hemp as a way of a low cost, low setup, low barrier to entry. Hemp for CBD as a way to help bring people into that space.
Kian, just in light of that, we ran a poll. Where do people think that the regulation should be focused? At the point of cultivation, we had 29%. At the point of distribution, we had 27%. At the point of retail, we had 24%. Not sure, it's all far too confusing. We had 20%. But there has been talk about trying to regulate on the ground, where people are cultivating is pretty much impossible. You can't regulate people growing in their garages and in tents at home, and in the rural areas, we know we've tried to regulate it there for decades. It hasn't worked. So there's this school of thought that's coming out that we should be regulating at processing and at retail and places which are easier to control. What is your view on that?
I totally agree. It's almost impossible to regulate the farmers, but they need to be educated that if they don't follow these safety protocols, they will not be able to sell their product into the market. And that from a hub perspective, because we're really advocating setting up of hubs, as we're doing with Daniel in the Northwest and other farms in the Northwest, is establishing these hubs. And then farmers will very quickly learn, if they don't want to follow the guidelines that are given to them in terms of quality, they'll very quickly learn that if they don't, those hubs that are collecting that flower will no longer purchase. So that is where things need to be tested in terms of heavy metals and particular pathogens. But then there also needs to be the testing or compliance, or testing for compliance on the retail level, to ensure that what the bottle says, if you're buying a tincture or if you're buying capsules, that what it says is actually what it is. There was an institute some time ago, a few months ago, that bought a whole lot of cannabis products off the market in South Africa. and more than 90% of those products were not actually, the bottle did not contain the contents that the packaging said it did. So I believe that there's two levels of regulations that must occur for public, for public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a cannabis industry perspective, we continually talk about the fact that we need to be responsible and the customer must be protected at all costs. So I think we totally agree with that. Theo, how do we persuade traditional farmers, not just in South Africa, but globally, but specifically here, who we're still trying to break that mold that cannabis is evil and the devil's weed? And how do we persuade and get more traditional farmers to the table to understand that they can replace certain crops and bring cannabis into their matrix? Because a lot of the sort of more commercial farmers have cultivation experience, deep cultivation experience. So for them to flip into this crop is not so difficult technically. But how do we change that mindset within those farming communities?
Trinda, I don't think it is that difficult. You are talking of a communications exercise, and that's why I said earlier that communications effort is of vital importance for the industry to be vested on a sound foundation. But farmers will always do what is profitable for them to do. Agriculture is a business, and like in any other business, you need to weigh your risks. And farmers must diversify. They must always have something which can still bring in some cash flow if other crops fail. And since we have visited you a few weeks ago, of course, we had a number of questions from members wherever we visit farmers in South Africa and in Zimbabwe. They say, we've seen you on social media, and what is this cannabis about? There's a lot of curiosity about it, and especially the place it can take as a diversified commodity to fill up a gap somewhere on the farm and in some time of the year when other crops might be at higher risk. And then, of course, it is important for farmers to have access to good extension services. There must be somebody whom they can call to say, I see an insect which I have never seen before. I see some rust on my leaves and I don't know exactly what it is or how to treat it. What are the farmers doing? And I believe the moment we have that kind of stuff in place, this is an industry that can really explode. Farmers learn more from other farmers than from anyone else. And lately, especially the New Zealand farmers who are in many other commodities, some of our most important competition in the world. Many New Zealand farmers have started to post on social media how well cannabis is doing for them as a diversified crop.
Okay, so it's coming, which is good to hear. It looks like Daniel's joined us again. We just had a question from someone in California. Bruno, thanks for joining us all the way from Cali. He just asked if there are testing labs in SA. There are testing labs in SA, but I think we're having the same problem you guys had a few years ago where standardization is still an issue. So we are working through that. Daniel, hopefully you can hear us. Thanks for joining us. I know load shedding has been knocking you out, but I appreciate you fighting to get back in. Daniel, you work a lot on the ground with grassroots level farmers who see cannabis and hemp as an opportunity, but are frustrated with either the lack of knowledge or lack of access. What is the perception on the ground from sort of grassroots level farmers from your perspective? I don't know if you heard us there, Daniel. Let's try and unmute you. I think Daniel is frozen. Sorry, Daniel, we can't hear you. Anthony, your view, has there been any conversation in government about regulating at different points other than the sort of cultivation side? Has that been a conversation that's filtered into government at all?
Yeah, from government point of view, I think government is listening to the industry, even though the industry is not kind of organized in terms of its communication, most particularly to the police makers. But those suggestions that have been said by Cian, of course, we did listen to them. We did, discussed them at length. And remember, from a policy point of view, we are always trying to kind of listen to all sectors, those who are pro-cannabis and those who do not really want cannabis to be legalized, because it is not everybody within the society who wants cannabis to be legalized. The crop itself, to a certain extent, it is still having a stigma of some sort. And part of our strategy and part of the intervention that we are putting in place is, first of all, to try to destigmatize the plant itself, so that the broader society will then be able to understand the benefits that comes out of this particular crop. Before the discussions within the cannabis industry can take at the level at which it is taken now, cannabis and Druids Garden will know has been planted, has been practiced for quite some time, legally so, under SAPRA, through the research licenses. Those who participated there, they know very well. And the legislative framework kind of started right from there as government to say, let us start researching, let us start testing, and let us start understanding what are the do's and the don'ts, what are the risks within this particular crop. And that is why the legal framework, the legislative framework within cannabis, even now, it is constantly evolving, because from day to day, government is learning, government is listening, and government is interrogating everything that comes from the sector to say, if the sector was to take this particular direction, most particularly, it will then be able to unlock the economy. It will then be able to start contributing towards job creation. And those kinds of advices, those kind of advocacies from those who are within the industry are being listened to by government. And government, and I think from where we are sitting, you understand very well that we have the draft cannabis master plan that is undergoing the processes of being approved. We've got a cannabis bill for private purposes, which is also undergoing the processes, so that ultimately it will then be approved. And we also have the Plant Improvement Act that now allows for the cultivation of the hemp. So you can see from the legal the legislative framework point of view, there is that evolution to say at some point we need to reach a balanced level, an equilibrium, where we can then be able to unlock this sector, be it an industrial, be it medical, be it recreational. We need to strike that particular balance, listen to those who say no, listen to those who say yes, and the policy framework that must come out of there must then, to a certain extent, be able to balance. And of course, the issues of not regulating it at a cultivation level is something that is on the table to say, how can we approach that? If we were to approach that, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and at what level can this particular crop be regulated, so that at the end it does not reach or it does not land into the hands of those that is not intended for. So basically, at a legislative framework which is evolving, all the inputs are being taken care of, and at some point an equilibrium will definitely be reached, where we will have a legislative framework which will then be able to be accommodative of everybody. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Anthony. We've got a few minutes left. Daniel, I'm going to try you again quickly, but just so you know, we have a special we have a commercial cultivation course. We are giving away not giving away, but we are giving the course away at 25% discount. These are the costs, and the code will come up in a second. So if you use the code SAAI25, SAI 25. That course covers everything to do with commercial cannabis cultivation. It's a 3-day course. You go to Salper Farms. Fantastic course for those of you who are very serious or maybe want to invest or investigate. We've had some people come onto this course who have left the course going, I've realized I don't want to farm cannabis, and so ultimately save them a lot of money, because farming cannabis is not for everybody. Daniel, I'm going to try bring you on again. Let's just check if we can get you there, because I know you've kept trying. No, it's not looking good. Guys, we've got 5 minutes left, so I just want to quickly go around and just get final comments. Theo, your thoughts on the future of cannabis? I know it's a broad question, but what do you think the future is in the next sort of 2 to 5 years?
If we just see what happened to saffron, which also came into South Africa 2.5 years, how that exploded. Now they've organized themselves and went to government as a lobby group, and government was really very lenient to set the framework in which the industry flowered. I think that never before as we've seen such exciting opportunities as what the cannabis industry is bringing to the table right now, and we can really only blame ourselves if we do not organize ourselves well to grab the opportunity.
Absolutely, it's ours to lose. I agree with that. Anthony, your final words on where you think things are and what the potential is.
Yeah, thank you very much, Triton. I think what I can say is that government has so far demonstrated its commitment to support this industry, and I think in the State of the Nation address, the president talked about the industry. In the State of the Province address, the premier talked about the industry. That shows the level of commitment that government is having on supporting this industry, on unlocking this industry. And of course, because it's an uncharted territory throughout the world, we will from time to time consult each other, sit down and listen to one another with the view that the legislative framework that is evolving will ultimately be able to allow everybody who wants to participate in this particular industry in the country and also in the province to then be able to do so. And the commitment is there from government in terms of the support that is being looked into, the support that is being packaged, so that those who say we want to participate into this particular industry and we need support, and definitely government will be ready one way or the other with a particular support to then be able to support them. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Anthony. Appreciate your contribution, your time. Kian, last words from you. What does the future hold? Is it bright?
Thank
is
you.
It dark?
Thank you, Trenton. I think it looks very bright. It looks very bright. I think there's incredible opportunities for SMMEs, for rural communities, for social development, for real upliftment. But as has been, I think, echoed by many people in this meeting, the industry needs to organize itself. There are some initiatives. There's the private sector working group. There's a number of industry associations, but they are not well supported. People seem to be working in silos. And then again, the topic of this conversation tonight was traditional, and the traditional growers in rural communities really need to be brought on board, need to be given a voice. Too often things are moving very fast, leaving them behind. There's complex English that is being used. And I think that there's not enough of an opportunity being given to fully address the traditional growers. And that's not necessarily anybody's fault. But I think that there needs to be a much more concerted effort to involve Sangomas, Inyangas, traditional leaders. They play a very vital role in our country, and they're also the custodians of very vast tracts of land that can be used for socio-economic development. But I do think the future is very bright.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's a general consensus that we need to collaborate. You know, this is something we constantly talk about on things that we do. We need to work together. You know, at the end of the day, we have a massive opportunity to be a player on a global level. We already have been exporting cannabis. We're one of the biggest exporters of cannabis globally already. We just need to industrialize and to formalize that. And I think people often in South Africa, we get very stuck into our little environment and not understanding that the more we work together, the faster we bring this online, the better the opportunity to take this out. And actually, in 2 years' time, I want to see South Africans at MJ BizCom, at ICBC, at Spanibus, going out there and selling our landrace strains, our products, predominantly grown under the sunshine, which is what we have the advantage of. So I'm very excited about the future and what that holds. But we need to work together. So on that note, I'll leave that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Apologies that Daniel couldn't get on and that Nutty couldn't join us because of load shedding. One of those things, but some fascinating conversations. Anthony, sincerely appreciate your input. So always great to have some positive, constructive government inputs. Theo, thanks for joining us after flying in. And Kian, as always, doing incredible things at Druids Garden. So we really appreciate your time. Until next time, have a good evening. There'll be replays on this. You'll be able to check the code for the discount on the course. And have a good evening wherever you are.